Wow, stories.
My ex-fiancé, whom I'll call Alan, and I had been together for 3 years. My sister is actually the one who set us up. She was friends with him in high school and has been on and off close with him since. My sister and I never really got along for the longest time. She's a narcissist and has anger issues, making her tough to be around. But one day, she told me that Alan actually had a crush on me and had told my sister's boyfriend, now husband, a while back. So, she got us talking, and we really hit it off. We had met and hung out on and off throughout the years, but never officially started dating until after my sister set us up. But here's where it gets weird. Alan had a tiny teenage crush on my sister when they were in 9th grade together. He quickly got over it when she made it clear it wasn't reciprocated and started dating around, but right when she was setting us up to get together, she told him that she actually did like him in high school, but she just didn't want it to hurt her social status. This would be the first of many questionable comments and things she would do. Later, she would describe what she called her ideal man as the actual description of Alan, and then finish it off with, like Alan, who is the absolute opposite of her husband. Yes, she was married at that time. We were in shock and had no idea what to say or do, so we just kind of brushed it off, but things just kept getting worse. She would complain that her best friend never comes around anymore because of me and that I was changing him for the worse. She constantly bragged about being such good friends with him and how I had just ruined that, like his ex-girlfriend. In reality, Alan was avoiding her because of how terrible she was treating both me and him. He never said that to her since he hates conflict, but he would complain about her to me several times. Not long after that, she had her first child. Then came postpartum depression, and she went off the rails. She was sleeping with others and hiding it. When her husband found out, she just started blatantly doing it. He was so close to divorcing her and hiring a lawyer to get custody. This is when Alan and I completely cut contact with her. But she finally started going to therapy and getting the help she needed, and things seemed to get better. This would be when my sister and I really started to be close. She actually admitted she had been terrible as a person and sister to me, and told me to start holding her more accountable. She and her husband were being really good friends to us for the first time in a long time. But then she got pregnant again. A couple of days before she went into labor, my sister waited until Alan and her husband left and then began to tell me about how close she and Alan were. She mentioned that apparently he had sent her an inappropriate picture when they were in high school and would visit intimacy shops once a month. She even tried to describe what his anatomy looked like. She was very wrong. Then she proceeded to tell me in specific details how he helped her put on lingerie. She explained that Alan was with her while she was trying on the lingerie at her apartment. However, she couldn't get it on and walked out into the room where Alan was, completely naked, and had him help her put it on. But it wasn't weird. They were just that close. I knew about the makeout session and the visits to intimacy shops, but not about the lingerie or the picture. I chose to confront her about when she told him she was into him in high school, but that she didn't want it to hurt her status. She then told me it wasn't about hurting her status. Rather, she knew she could be happy with Alan, but wasn't ready to settle down. She didn't want to hurt him by being with other people, but she knew she could be happy with him and that they could make a relationship last. This obviously shook me and our relationship. This is when I made a Reddit post asking for advice. Alan and I decided that it would be best for us to stop any unnecessary contact. Either I would talk to her or Alan and I would, but Alan wasn't to be alone or talk to her alone at all. And before you ask, yes, he wanted it to be this way too. I didn't question his loyalty, but I did question hers. Fast forward about 5 months, and Alan and I broke up. We both need to work on ourselves individually before we can get married or have a proper life together. But we are both planning to revisit things after some time and hard work on ourselves to see if a life together is still what we want. It's been a little more than 3 weeks now since we broke up. I moved out 3 days after breaking it off with him and moved in with a friend. I then called my sister the day after to let her and the rest of my family know. During that phone call, she proceeded to ask if she could contact Alan to check on him since he's her friend too. Almost like she was just telling me and not actually asking. I told her I didn't care what she did, still trusting Alan to not play a part in her sketchiness. She has now called him several times since. She's messaged him on Snapchat several times about random stuff. She invited him to a party for the 4th of July and over to dinner a week later. But she has yet to call and check on me once. She never invited me over for dinner or anything else, simply nothing. It's clear she is trying to get Alan back in her life and doesn't care about me. Without saying anything to her, I have blocked her contact, her Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and muted her messages on Snapchat. The only reason I haven't blocked her on Snapchat is in case there is something actually important we need to talk about, as I still care deeply for my niece and nephew. She is also unaware of all of this, as I just did this a day or so ago. Was this the right thing to do? My family is also likely to get mad at me for this, since she's the favored child. However, I can't seem to shake my anger and sit here knowing she's doing all of this and do nothing. I've already felt bad enough for not telling her husband, but what would I say? She's never tried to kiss Alan or have intimacy with him. There's no physical proof of most of this, and she's manipulative. Even if he did believe me, she would probably just gaslight him. I definitely don't want to ruin a whole marriage over all of these strange comments, but I'm so angry with her. And though I know nothing I say will actually resonate or get through to her, I still feel like I need to express my feelings. Does anyone have any advice on what to do in this situation, or how I can express myself and get closure with my sister? Should I tell her husband even though I have no hard proof? Is it possible I am making this all bigger than it really is? To add, a lot of people are focusing on Alan. To be clear, this post is about my sister. I feel betrayed and want advice on how to handle this with her and her husband. I don't believe he will, but whether or not Alan eventually gets with my sister is irrelevant. He knows the consequences of that. And no, I did not provide all the details about us breaking up. It's a much more complicated story. I never promised to get back together with him. But again, he's not the focus. But I'm angry at my sister and concerned for her husband. I don't want to tell him out of spite, but I'm curious if you think I should tell him about all of her strange comments. I am furious and sick of playing this game with my sister. I feel like I need to express some of these emotions to her, regardless of whether or not it will resonate with her. But I don't want to make things worse. Does anyone have any advice on that? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I do actually remember your post. Your sister has issues. She's not a nice sister. She's a jealous, I want what others have type of selfish. I assume he's the one telling you all this. So I hope you can just remind him that them even talking like this is causing some negative feelings, and hopefully he can be decent and shut it down if she refuses to be decent. I'd also probably have a few harsh words for her. Decent people don't try to interfere with their family's spouses. Period. End of story. These people are deeply selfish and strange. I'd probably want to warn the brother-in-law that that's why you had to block her on everything, and he can reach out if needed. He deserves to know the truth, even if he doesn't believe it at first. Comment 2. All of this is just noise. If you've genuinely broken up to work on yourselves and then revisit your relationship in the future, you're insane. But this is a golden situation to discover how foolish the idea is. If he holds even the slightest spark left for you, he'll never ever get with your sister. So let it play out. You'll soon find out whether your ex-fiancé is the guy you thought he was. Your sister, at present, is only technically beholden to her husband, so relax and clear your mind. Now for the update. After I blocked my sister, things were a bit chaotic. She tried to reach out, but I was so done that I just ignored her. A few days later, my mom texted me out of nowhere, inviting me to a family dinner. Like, seriously? I wasn't in the mood for family drama, but it was to celebrate my parents' wedding anniversary, and she said all the siblings had to be there. So, I sighed and thought, guess I gotta be a good daughter and show up. I mean, I do love my parents, even if they get on my nerves sometimes. So, the day of the dinner came. Everything was going fine until my sister reached out and asked if we could talk things out before the event. I just wasn't feeling it. I told her I needed space and couldn't deal with more crap right now. She didn't text back, thankfully. The dinner went on with my parents being all lovey-dovey and in good spirits. The table was filled with food and laughter, and for a moment, I almost forgot about the awkwardness. Almost. When my sister showed up, though, she was all smiles and sunshine, which was super fake and obvious. I noticed her looking at Alan's empty seat a few times, and it made me feel uneasy. I was just trying to enjoy my mom's famous lasagna, but my sister was making it tough. Then, during dinner, everyone started talking about wedding plans. My brother and sister-in-law were expecting, so it was a hot topic. My mom even jokingly suggested I should think about getting back together with Alan. I almost choked on my food. Seriously, Mom? Now's not the time. After the main course, my sister stood up and proposed a toast. She said she had a surprise for everyone, and I just thought, oh boy, here we go. So, she stands up and announces that she invited Alan to join us for dessert. I couldn't believe it. Everyone else seemed excited and clueless, but I just felt my heart sink. Alan arrived shortly after, greeted with hugs and smiles from my family. I felt like I was in some weird reality show where everyone was out to get me. During dessert, Alan started talking about old memories, and it felt like I was being pushed aside. My sister was right there with her inside jokes, and I just wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. I excused myself to the bathroom because I was about to lose it. In the bathroom, I overheard my sister and Alan laughing outside the door. It was like a stab to the heart. I forced a smile when I got back to the table, but inside, I was screaming. After dinner, my brother suggested a family game night. I knew what that meant, more time with Alan. I suggested we play charades to lighten the mood, but my sister just brushed it off like it was the dumbest idea ever. She suggested a game that involved revealing secrets, which made me feel uneasy. I knew she was going to try to get me to say something embarrassing, and I didn't want to play her game. As she started sharing embarrassing childhood stories, I felt a wave of dread. Alan joined in, and it was like they were teaming up on me. The stories turned to uncomfortable truths, and I was done. My sister was pushing for deeper revelations, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I called her out for trying to embarrass me. She acted all innocent, saying she just wanted to have fun. Yeah, right. I then revealed that I knew about the inappropriate stories she shared about Alan. The room went silent. Alan looked confused, and my family shifted awkwardly. I explained how it made me feel to hear those stories and see her actions. My mom tried to step in, but I stood my ground. The atmosphere got tense, and my sister's act started to crack. Alan asked for clarification, and my sister got all defensive. She tried to make excuses, but I wasn't having it. I told them I wanted nothing to do with the drama anymore, and just left the house. Days later, I got a message from Alan asking to meet up and talk. We met at this quiet diner because I knew it would be the only place where we wouldn't have an audience. He was confused about what happened at the dinner and wanted to know why I acted the way I did. I told him I felt blindsided and disrespected. He said he didn't know my sister was going to invite him over for dessert. I believed him, but it didn't make the whole situation any less painful for me. We talked about how my sister was trying to get a rise out of me, and he agreed. He said she had been acting weird ever since they broke up, and he didn't know why. I told him it was because she has a history with him, and it makes me uncomfortable. He looked surprised and asked what I meant. I explained that she was the one who introduced us, but she was also the one who had a crush on him back in the day. He said he had no idea and felt really bad about everything. I told him it wasn't his fault. I was just tired of my sister trying to mess with my life. He then asked if I wanted to give him another chance, and I was like, what? He said he really liked me and hoped we could work things out. I explained that I just needed time to figure out my own stuff and that I wasn't ready for a relationship. He said he understood and would be there if I changed my mind. After that, we parted ways, and I felt a bit better. I still have no idea what to do about my sister, though. Edit. After the dinner, my sister confronted me and demanded an apology for embarrassing her. I told her that she needed to apologize first for her behavior and for putting me in a very uncomfortable situation. She refused, so I told her that I would be telling her husband about everything, even though I didn't have any proof.